This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Hey everybody, it's PLC number 4. All right, Wally,
Hello,
get us started, Wally.
I'm ready to start this show. Let's see
Cool.
if it works. Okay, hopefully it will. Okay,
Oh my God, wait a second. I'm
can you
here.
see me? You see me?
I'm sorry, I'm coming. I'm in.
Yes.
What?
Can you see my screen or not? Not yet.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
perfect. Okay, okay. I decided to go this with a canvas. This is my digital tool number 4, and it's about language transfer, first language, and translanguaging. Is presented by me and is based on the books of Understanding Second Language from Ellis and the translanguaging classroom presentation or research that was from Garcia, Johnson, and Seltzer. And I'm sorry, but you're gonna see that I have a huge bias for translanguaging. Before we start, what I'm gonna be talking about is the language attitude and it went too fast. Come on. Oh, seriously, this is Canvas. I'm learning to work on this one. Language attitude and L1 transfer, one bilingual repertoire versus two monolingual in one, and obviously was translanguaging. When we are talking about language attitude, we always have talked in the previous modules or material that we have go over that it does transfer from L1 to the other languages. So any language attitude that we have innate on us is gonna get in the way and it's gonna affect the transfer of L1 features into the L2. This has been proved by different researchers like True and Cowics, where they presented evidence that working memory helps by avoiding the negative transfer. In other words, you can, if you have the attitude or the ability to control the good and the bad stuff, you're gonna be able to control that. Okay, this is not how it's say in your L2, so you are not gonna say it like that, like we always do in Spanish, that we first say la Casa Blanca or la Blanca Casa, so we're gonna say the White House instead of the house white. So we know that's an example how the language attitude, because you are a rule follower, you know you're gonna be able to transfer that from your L1 into your L2. Same presentation from Sparks, Patton, and Gunn show and Humbug, where they also in 2009 present information where they present evidence, sorry, that the transfers of skills of L1 are gonna be the skills of your L1 are gonna be transferred into your L2. So anything that has worked on your L1 is gonna be a tool that you're gonna bring and present on your L2. That's language attitude and L1 transfer. I mean, it's more of what we have seen and we have proven in practice that it does happen. Then the other topic that stuck with me was one bilingual repertoire versus two monolinguals in one. Society thinks that bilingual people have two separate roads. In their brain, they have like one side as Spanish and the other side that is English, when in reality it's not. We are one big river. I love what Miss Ofelia Garcia say, that we are a corriente. We go through. We have, like in my picture, we have little branches that comes in, but everything stays in one. And it's not, honestly, it comes to a point that's not only the bilingual, it's not just two languages, it's all the languages that you have sometimes in you. It comes into that big river and flew, it goes through you, it fluye through you all the time. So reality is that we only have one repertoire. Bilingual people or people who speak more than one lingua are gonna constantly be switching between those two languages. Society and school and everybody expect that students sticks to one because they think that we have that two roads, and okay, if you are in the Spanish setting, you're gonna speak only Spanish, or if you're in the English setting, you're gonna speak only English. And like if inside of your brain there were only two books, two places where you pull from one, pull the other. No, that's not how it works. And Grosjean in 1982 showed it. That's impossible. That's not how it is. The students have learned through life, and that happens to all of us, to differentiate which setting are we gonna be, and we differentiate and pick from the repertoire what kind of words are we gonna be using. Like right now, I'm using my English ones and hoping and trying my best to pronounce it and make sure that my message is getting to you guys. But sometimes I get stuck and I'm gonna pull from my Spanish repertoire. So socially, we are expected to always work in one of those languages and stick to them. But reality is we modify, we change. And as we are talking, as we are doing stuff, if you get stuck, you just pull that word. And whatever comes to you is one bilingual and one multilingual, I will say, that you pull out of it. That's why translanguaging, I really got a bias. I got that thing that that's what I do. I do all the time with my students, with my kids, wherever I am. And sometimes I find myself in front of an American person who doesn't speak Spanish, and I'm sorry, it comes out naturally from me. That word in Spanish comes out, and I say, "Oof, okay, sorry, come on." I remember there. I truly did love this whole concept of translanguaging. I have a little video. I don't think we have time for it, but it explains what translanguaging really is, which is a pedagogical, how do you say, pedagogical approach. It's a way where it's a theory, it's an approach, it's a way to teach the kids, allow them to be themselves, allow them to for them to use the words that they can express themselves from. It's not Spanglish, it's not code switching. It's not code switching because it's not like they're going intentionally, okay, I have to speak English. No, it's whatever comes. It's the way that the bilinguals use their repertoire. It's how they let that thing come out of them. It's a transformative theory because it's constructed by the student or by the bilingual person. That's the person who's going to be saying, you don't know if it's going to come out with an English word, it's going to come out with the Spanish word. And if they speak French, it's going to be French. I was looking at videos where the kids were Japanese, Asian descendant. They were using their Asian repertoire. So we are like this little tree that I have here, and that's how they present it to us. All those languages, every single of that is inside of you, and it's going to come out of you. And you as a teacher, you cannot stop that. You have to allow them because that's the way they express themselves. Unfortunately, here in Alabama, it's going to be very difficult for that to happen because people are not used to this. People are not able to accept that. And that's what I see in my coworker, because as the person that I share the classroom with, she's like, oh, but that cannot happen here in Alabama. We are an English only state. We cannot do that here. And like, but that's like bilingual education. It's not bilingual education. You are allowing the student to express the best way they have. That's translanguaging. You are allowing that person to be. And that's my 2 cents, ladies. Thank you. Zulmita, you want to go? Or Abby?
Zulma, you can go.
Abby, can you go first, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, can y'all see this? Can y'all see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, love.
Okay. Cool. All right. All right. So this week we talked about language transfer and translanguaging, and we read 2 different chapters / articles, and we watched a video on it. And so I have some things that I thought were super interesting and some cool takeaways that I'm excited to talk about. Oh, I gotta click the button. Okay. So today's topics, I'm going to talk about the language repertoire, prototypicality, and contrastive analysis hypothesis. Okay. So language repertoire. So the language repertoire is a mental library that stores all one's language skills collectively together. And I love what Wally said about how our society really depicts that if you are bilingual, that you have a Spanish side and an English side, or whatever language, whatever two languages you speak, they're separate. When really that's not true at all. Monolingual speakers, I love that the book mentioned this, or not the book, the chapter online mentioned that monolingual speakers have different varieties of language. We have a river, even if you just speak English, you have formal English, you have school English, you have academic English, you have friend English, all the different things. It's just the same thing. If you're multilingual, you have different morphemes, different lexicon, different phonemes. And that's why it's important for all of us to understand that when someone is bilingual, they're not just pulling from their one side, they're pulling from all of the things that are in that river that we have inside of our brain that's flowing. It's all part of the same system. And then I put that this is important because we can't limit our students' abilities to understanding in one language or estimate the high level of processing going on in their brain. A lot of times we think, oh, why don't you don't understand this? Like, this is so easy. But we're not thinking about that river is constantly flowing of all that knowledge in their brain, and all of these things are happening as a process together. And we have to think about that they're thinking about, maybe they're thinking about the word in their first language, and we need them to think about it in their second language. And that's just a whole process that they have to do. And that's why it might take a little bit longer for our students who are bilingual. And then my classroom example is bilingual students communicating with their friends in both languages. I love this. I love sitting in my classroom and listening to my students switch from Spanish to English just like that, and just hearing like how their skills are improving in English, but they're also comfortable switching back and forth with each other. And it's because they have that in common. They're both going through all of that at the same time. And then I said Spanglish is a great example that's used in my classroom daily. There's constant code switching and combining of words. And then I've got like the little person with their little, I think this is Chinese, and then English right here in the alphabet. Okay. The next topic is prototypicality, and this was a term coined by Kellerman in 1989. And I love this because learners have an intuitive and internal understanding of their L1 lexical items and grammatical structures. And that basically just means that our learners have an understanding of what a word should mean in their L1, and they're taking all of what that word means. For example, there was the Brecken study that he did where he studied the word, it means broke or to break in English, and he used it as a literal breaking of like an arm versus like the strike broke. So figuratively saying the strike ended, but they said the strike broke, and he gave it to all these different students that were speaking Dutch, I believe, and that he asked them to pick which one that they thought if they thought they were grammatically correct, and most of them only picked the one that meant literally to break. And so this is an example of prototypicality because they only associated that meaning of break with its literal meaning in their L1 and said it was translatable in that, but they didn't say it was translatable into the other language when it was a figurative meaning. And so I think this is important because, especially as an ESL teacher, and I'm in the reading classroom a lot, teachers have to consider the literal versus figurative / metaphorical meaning of language. L2 learners often have trouble because they focus on translating the literal meaning. And this is super, super important because whenever we're teaching in our classroom and we might use an idiom or a metaphor, that might not make any sense to the learner. And so we have to make sure that we're being careful of what we're saying, because we can't say it's raining cats and dogs outside all the time if they think, oh my gosh, is it literally raining cats and dogs? And so my classroom example is students often struggle understanding figurative language lessons in class. And then in my professional experience, I actually had a student who speaks Portuguese, and we were doing a figurative language test, and he looks at me and he says, I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean? That's nacho cheese or whatever, because it was talking about not yours, and people say, oh, that's nacho whatever, as in like the chip nacho, but the pun was, oh, that's not yours. And so I put some puns right here. You're the only bun for me. Keep calm and curry on. Those are just an example of something that people that are learning English might have a harder time understanding. Okay. And then contrastive analysis hypothesis. And this was kind of the start of all of us thinking about the differences between one language and the other language. And we've got Lotto in 1957. He's the one who came up with it, basically saying that the more distance between the two languages, the harder it will be, which we call as proximity. And I basically want to talk about this, saying while this hypothesis is based on some true facts, there are many, many studies that have created rebuttals against the belief. Studies done by Odlin and Sejolham are two examples of evidence against these claims that we read in our chapter, and you can go back and read those in the book as well. But we can see now that language distance doesn't always equal difficulty in every situation. And so one example is students believing that Chinese is harder to learn from Spanish because they feel that the two languages are more different, I guess. All right, so thank you for listening. That's my presentation. Okay, let me get back to.
You did amazing. You did it in less than 7 minutes. Girl, you're rocking.
Thanks. All right, Zulma.
You ready, Sumita? Sumita, take the mute button. Sumita, we cannot hear you.
Okay,
Now.
I'm back. I'm trying to share my screen. Wait a second, but I cannot see it right here. Wait a second. Maybe here. Wait. Oh, great. Okay, here I am. Wait a second.
You got it.
Ooh, I got it. I'm here. I'm sorry. It took forever, but I'm here. Okay.
Oh, you got it.
It seems to be that everybody used the same one this time. Like everybody used Canvas. I love it. I love it. But, okay. Okay. Here we go. ESL, welcome to my PLC. I think it's number 4, right? Okay, I'm gonna talk about language transfer. Okay, it's the use of a linguistic aspect from one language to another by a bilingual or multilingual speaker in attempting to understand the language. For me, it's like it make it easier the learning of another language. For example, when in Spanish, when we share like cognate words like hospital, it will be hospital in English, idea in English, original, it will be original in English, and it will be it could be like a positive transfer or negative transfer. The type of the language transfers are like I say, negative when interfere with the learning, and positive when make it easier the learning, like I just say, when we share like cognates words. For me, it's easier because it's kind of seem the same. This is an example that I got, like language transfer. When it's like the same, it will be like a positive, and it kind of different, it will be a negative. And I have like a description in the language transfer that it could be also something that Abby talked about it, like in Japanese versus English. The subject in Japanese, the subject go first, and then the object, and then the verb goes at the end. So it will be in English, your cat saw. Okay, if you do the transfer. In English, it will be I saw your cat. The verb always will go after the subject. Okay, translanguage it. Okay, it's the process of making meaning through the use of two languages. People use like their linguistic ability to make sense or just to talk with other people around it. I also have that like Ophelia, I saw it too, that video, but I also find something that I cannot share it because I couldn't put it right there, but it says like, if we limit the ability of our student, we are silencing their potential, and their potential could be larger than just the language. And when we limit kids with stifle their ability to make meaning, we make meaning with all our language repertoire. Code switching is the next. Well, code switching for me is code switching. It's like switching like back and forth. Yes, I'm sorry. I have it here. Wait a second. Somewhere. Okay. Code switching is kind of like gracias for the lovely gift. Okay. This is the use of two language, and it's most of the time using with community bilinguals. Or when the speaker knows more than two language, and it could be to fulfill a need, a speaker who may not be able to express in one language, or it's kind of like hard to express in one language, or to express to try to include somebody in a conversation. This is an example of code switching, but kind of like at the school and then at home, like in English. I mean, at the school is in English, and at home they will be speaking in Spanish. Okay, that will be all for me. Thank you.
You rock a girl. I think this is the first time we finish all the presentations with time to spare.
I know.
We still have 17 minutes from the
Perfect.
fifth. So as I
Wait a
was telling
second.
you, what happened, baby? You're good. You're good. We
I
were
need to stop sharing this, girl. Wait a second. I'm lost.
There's
Don't
a
worry.
red button at the top that says stop.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good, baby. What I was saying is, I'm always the moderator. I'm always trying to think ahead, and I'm sorry. I come sometimes very bossy to you girls, so I apologize for that. But uh, we were talking beforehand, and we kind of all agree that the five concepts that stuck the most with us were language transfer being the most, because all the topics that we talk about one way or another had to be with language transfer. Then language repertoire, because the repertoire is what we use, and translanguaging, this CAH, and as last the code switching. So we're going to start talking about language transfer. To me, language transfer is, and you girls butt in whenever you want, language transfer is all the knowledge that we come with. That's our baggage, that's our package that we walk in to whatever setting we are going to be when we learn the L2, is our language transfer. That's what we bring in. The cognates that Suma was talking, the grammar rules that we have, the abilities that we have implemented through our life, to the skills that we have developed, all that kind of stuff is our language. It's gonna transfer with us from one language to another. Sometimes it's gonna be positive. Cognates are gonna be positive. Sometimes it's gonna be negative, like we Spanish or other languages, like Suma just pointed out, Asian people have to stop for a second when they are making the structure of their grammar sentences. Say, hey, no, in English it's not like that. It's different because it has a different order. For me, language transfer is part of all the rules that we've been talking about. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring the microphone up. I just realized.
You're good. You're good.
And then, so to me, language transfer, without language transfer, there would not be L2.
Mhm.
Positive or negative language transfer has to be our number one. You
Mhm.
go, girls, buddy.
I think so too. And I think what's really important about language transfer is that it helps us create like that inner language. Because, yeah, we have an L1 and we have an L2, but I feel like in between there's this language that we're creating in our head and it's constantly evolving and changing all the time. And that's because of language transfer. We're trying to transfer these concepts from our L1 to our L2, and we need that inner language in our head to help us do that. And so I think it's really important that we have to consider language transfer because whether it's positive or negative, it's happening, especially because whenever you're learning another language, you're trying to base it off what you already know, especially if you have an academic background. That's why it is easier for learners who are younger to learn a second language and to have that more, I guess, native like accent because they don't have any academic background to base it off of. But when you are learning like English, for example, like y'all and y'all have been to college in Venezuela, like it's a lot harder because you want to transfer all of those academic.
Oh, yes. It happened to me.
Mhm.
It happened to me all the time. I have to do it because it's different. And it's not only the grammar part, it's only how to pronounce, it's the whole thing, how it sounds, it can make the difference. And it's like you say, it's positive and it's negative. It's sometimes it could be easier with the Spanish to English or English to Spanish, but I think it will be harder, like going from Spanish to Russian, maybe. I don't know. It will be, I mean, it's not even the same the way they write. It's different. It is different. So I think it's easier when all those transfer, like you use like I say, connect words that will help you. Like sometimes I cannot express myself and I would say, hey, this is like aniversario. And it will sound like anniversary, it doesn't be like the same at the end, but you can like relate it, the word with one to the other.
But speaking of cognates and all that kind of stuff, it's so funny because you know how long did I have to practice today? Pedagogical.
You just say pedagogía. That's it. It's the same.
Pedagogical. You see, I cannot break it. Pedagogical. And then
Just say it, Abby.
Pedagogical.
Pedagogical.
Okay. No, acetaminophen. Say, Abby, go ahead. Say acetaminophen.
Okay.
Tylenol, acetaminophen. How you say that?
What is it?
Acetaminophen. How you say? Tylenol, the active component of Tylenol.
Hold on, I can't understand you. Go ahead.
Okay. The active ingredient of Tylenol, acetaminophen.
Oh, garlic? Are you talking about garlic?
No, acetaminophen.
Oh, acetaminophen. Acetaminophen.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. You see?
Yeah.
See? So I write it.
I was like, what are you saying?
There you go. We can. Okay. Going back to where we were.
Yeah.
It is. It's the language transfer. I mean, I can.
Yes.
It's like ibuprofeno.
Mm-hmm.
Ibuprofen. That one I can say it.
Yes.
I can say ibuprofen, but I cannot say it.
Okay.
There you go. That's my language repertoire. It cannot come.
Go.
Go, Abby.
That our second topic is language repertoire. And I love this topic because it is so true. And so many people don't understand this and don't know this, that our languages are not separate systems. It is not. I used to think whenever I was going to learn Spanish, like, oh, I'm just going to hear it and it's just going to like, I'm just going to process it in English and like understand it. And that is nothing like anything that happens whenever you're learning a language. It is not two separate systems working. It's one thing going together. And so one time, like if I think, oh, like what is that word? Like yo quiero I don't know the word for apple. Apple, yo quiero un apple. I don't know. And I do that all the time because I'm pulling from both of my language repertoires. So whenever I'm trying to speak to my students that don't speak English, sometimes I slip up on a word. I'm like, do you know what this means? And then I'll like Google a picture of it, and they'll be like, oh, yeah. Because we're both all pulling from our language repertoires, and they're constantly growing. And that's super important in language transfer and translanguaging is our language repertoire. Y'all got anything to add?
For me, I mean, one connects to the other. The repertoire is what we use, it's everything. And even so, they want to say, oh, no, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. No, you only have 1. You throw in the bucket, everything goes there. It's a big pot and everything is there. It's boiling, going. And as you are talking, it's going to come out of you. That's what translanguaging is. Or every day, either we like it or not. Here I am 5 minutes ago, or a few minutes ago before we started, I say, hey boys, se me quedan callados because I'm going to be doing my exposition, okay? Don't screaming. AJ, no pelees con tu hermano, okay? Listen. So, I mean, and that's my everyday. I'm going like that. And so, I'm translanguaging, either I like it or not. It's not just the pedagogical method. It's my everyday. That's the way, because that's my repertoire. And then sometimes it's funny because you were talking about the fact that it's not on, because I just speak English. I only have one repertoire. No, even in English. Here you go. When I came from Miami, you guys talk about dressing. For me, dressing is a salad dressing. It's not the stuff, that's a stuffing. I had a huge argument with somebody about, no, that's not dressing, that's a stuffing. I say, no, yes, that's a stuffing. No, stuffing goes inside. And same with the chopping karabogi. I mean, it's so even people who are monolingual, they don't understand. They have different repertoires.
Yes.
So translanguaging, I love it. I love the theory. I wish, I hope, I pray that it doesn't have that much resistance, and they understand that students need that, because that's the where the brain is working. We cannot stop that. It's the way it's gonna go, and and that's the way they understand the concepts.
I mean, but even if it, like, now that we're talking about translanguaging, it's happening. I mean, it's not something that we can bring to the school and that's it. It's happening, like it or not. It's always at the school.
I brought a graphic in my PLC. What happened is I couldn't show it. It say that why we use this. Should we use this? Because it supports the students to be bilingual. Because it increases the students' comprehension. Because empowers the student participation. If you don't allow the student to talk however they want to talk,
and the best thing, Wally, and let me tell you the best thing that I seen here, that translanguaging, it will, I mean, help them to identify themselves, to connect themselves with their home language. The second is to create a great relationship between teacher and a student, okay? To make it easier, make it more confident.
They're learning your language. Just go ahead. What are you trying to say? Explain it to me. I have a Bulgarian boy. Believe me, we have a hard time communicating, but guess what? He just laughed at me and I laugh at him, and we go. But we butting heads and we arguing. And his daddy say, but he smiles at you. And I say, I know, because we fight all the time. Because he doesn't understand me and I don't understand him, but we figured it out together.
All the time.
And he said, yeah, but he likes it. He likes you. And I know, because I let him be. He started bitching at me in Bulgarian. I say the same to you, baby, whatever you say. Okay, let's move on. I can't spend the whole 50 minutes talking translanguage because we only have 3 minutes left.
4 minutes, yes. 3:51.
No, 3:49. Abby, CAH.
Yeah, contrastive analysis hypothesis. So this really goes into the basis of, it lays the groundwork for the future study of translanguaging, for language transfer, all of the things. But this is where it really started. And so I thought it was really important to put this as one of our topics, because it was kind of the foundational thing that laid the groundwork for all of these studies. And it does. I think this is really important. And even though this is just a theory and more of on the theoretical side of things, and cognitive versus psychological kind of study, I do think it's important to consider the way that contrastive analysis suggests that the further apart the two languages are, such as English and Chinese, where the alphabet is completely different, versus English and Spanish, we use the same letters for the most part.
Mhm.
And so it's really different. And so I think we can take contrastive analysis hypothesis and what it was founded on and bring it into more of the current research that we have and look into the psychological research of it. And I think it's more about perception and what a student thinks that they can do more than their actual cognitive abilities, because I've seen students who want to learn and who have a desire to learn and think that they can do it. They're going to pick it up quicker because they are motivated and they believe that they can do it. But if that student keeps telling themselves, this is too hard, I'm never going to be able to do it, can't learn this because it's way different than my first language, like there's just going to be that roadblock and that effective filter that they're going to have put up between them. And that's caused by basically contrastive analysis hypothesis. I mean, that's the basic structure of it.
It is. And I mean, it's going to be the motivation they have is how they want to do stuff. Because I have, through this year, I have students come from India, from Lebanon, from Afghanistan. In their case, it's not only the language, it's the alphabet, it's the way that we write. Because instead of writing from the right, they have to write from the left. It's the way they have to put the paper. Teach them how to grab a piece of paper and put it and start writing from the left. And still, hey, some of them, they just graduated last year as an honor student. So you know, I get goosebumps because it was their motivation. It was what they wanted. And to close this, let's move on.
Let's move on and go back and forth with code switching.
Code switching. There you go, Abby. Suma, talk to me about code switching. The
Okay,
last one.
all we have to say that code switching is when we go back and forth. Like we pass, like when you turn off the light, boom, 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 boom. Go back and forth with one language, okay? And a speaker will be able to express, like I say, in a language, you know, like it cannot help you a little bit. Like I will say something like, maybe somebody making somebody like understand what I'm trying to say. And I go back and forth like, or when I say like, buenos dias, how are you today? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, and what we need to point out, I think, is that code switching can be also misunderstood with translanguaging, but translanguaging is the pedagogical approach.
I was confused. Thank you, Wally. I was so confused, and I was like, "Hey, transfer languages, code switching. It seems to be the same to me. What is going on?" Like, whoa. Yeah.
We have
Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Abby.
Yes, we have less than a minute left. So great job, guys.
Thank you, girls.